Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. So today we're going to tackle something called Sprung rhythm.
Ooh, sounds intriguing.
Right. Now, I know rhythm in poetry might sound, well, kind of basic.
Yeah, like, isn't that a given?
Exactly. But trust me, this is different.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Our source today is this excerpt about it. And get this. Sprung rhythm was basically a total rebellion.
A rebellion.
Right?
Against what?
Against all those stuffy poetry rules back in the day.
Now that's more like it.
And the crazy thing is, it actually connects to how we speak and, experience the world.
Okay, you got my attention. So spill the beans, what IS sprung rhythm.
Well, that's where your expertise comes in.
All right, well, the fascinating thing is it throws out the rule book. Like, forget those strict structures we think of with poetry.
So, not your typical sonnet, then.
Nope. Sprung rhythm taps into something much more, I don't know, primal, connected to how we actually talk.
Give us an example, what's the difference?
Right. Okay, imagine those poems you read in school. All daddy-yoom, daddy-yoom, daddy-yoom.
Ah, iambic pentameter, right.
Yeah, exactly. Sprung rhythm says, nah, we don't need that. Instead of counting syllables per line.
It's more about the emphasis.
Exactly. It prioritizes stressed syllables.
Mm.
Creates a rhythm more like, natural speech with all the pauses and stuff.
So, how we talk naturally, not all robotic.
Exactly. It's about that inherent music in language.
Yeah.
How our voices rise and fall.
And how we emphasize certain words to, really get our point across.
Yes. And when you do that in poetry, whoa, it's powerful. Creates urgency, immediacy.
I can see how that would be really effective. But, who came up with this rebellious idea?
Well, that would be a Jesuit priest, actually.
A priest? That's unexpected.
Right. Gerard Manley Hopkins lived in the late 1800s. Deeply interested in the natural world, you see.
So nature was like his inspiration.
Totally. He felt regular poetry just couldn't capture its energy and complexity.
Too constrained by the rules, huh?
Exactly. He wanted poetry to pulse with that same vitality he saw in nature. All the unpredictability, the raw beauty.
And that's where sprung rhythm comes in.
Bingo.
The text mentions he wasn't widely published while he was alive. Kind of wild, right?
Oh, absolutely. His work was way ahead of his time, really avant-garde for the Victorian era.
Like people just weren't ready for it.
It challenged everything they thought poetry should be. But as we'll see, his ideas, they stuck around.
Had a lasting impact. So we've got this rebellious priest, invents this whole new way of writing poetry.
And it takes decades for the world to catch up.
It's a great story. But, okay, let's get into the how. When we say it mimics natural speech, what's Hopkins actually doing?
It's a bunch of things. First, the line length is all over the place.
Not your standard 8 syllables or whatever, huh?
Nope. It ebbs and flows like sentences in a conversation, mirroring those natural pauses we make when we talk.
And how does the stress thing fit in?
Well, instead of counting syllables, Hopkins focused on the natural stresses of words.
So certain words just naturally sound stronger.
Right. In sprung rhythm, every foot, that's the metrical unit, has one stressed syllable, but the number of unstressed ones can vary.
Okay, that's getting a bit technical, but I think I'm following.
Basically, it gives his lines this distinctive energy, like a pulsing rhythm, draws you to certain words and phrases.
So it's like he's composing music almost.
Exactly. And just like a composer uses different instruments, Hopkins uses all sorts of poetic devices to amplify the effect.
So it's not just the rhythm itself, but how he weaves in other stuff.
Precisely. This is where it gets really cool. He doesn't just use sprung rhythm, he plays with it.
Pushes the boundaries.
Yes. Experiments with sound devices like alliteration, assonance. It creates this whole immersive experience.
Yeah, so we're seeing how it goes way beyond just rhythm, huh?
Oh, yeah. It's about creating a whole sonic landscape,
Yeah.
mirroring the complexity of the world he's trying to capture.
That's amazing. Now, our source mentions 2 poems, The Wreck of the Deutschland and Pied Beauty.
2 of his most famous works.
But before we jump into those, let's talk about why any of this matters. Why should we in the 21st century care about this one poet and his rhythm experiments?
That's a great question. And I think it's because, even though he was way back then, Hopkins was wrestling with stuff that's still relevant today.
Like what kinds of things?
Like how we understand the world around us, know? How we express our own experiences.
And finding beauty in the unexpected. Right.
Yes, exactly. And sprung rhythm, well, it's all about individual expression, rejecting those rigid rules.
It's kind of like a precursor to all these later art movements.
Absolutely. Think modernism, free verse poetry, All that came after.
It's like he blew the doors wide open for poets, showed them, hey, you don't have to be stuck in the past.
Exactly. And his influence, you can see it everywhere. Poets who came after him, T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, even today.
Wow, so we're not just talking about one guy's style here.
Yep. This is about a turning point in how poetry evolved. How one person's crazy idea can, like, ripple through time.
Inspire generations. I love that. Okay, so Hopkins the Rebel changed poetry forever.
That's one way to put it.
But let's get back to the poems themselves. The Wreck of the Deutschland and Pied Beauty.
Ah, yes.
That first one, just the title. Intense.
It is intense.
Oh, yeah.
About a real shipwreck, 1875. A German ship, 5 Franciscan nuns died.
Oh, wow, that's heavy.
Hopkins uses it to explore, faith, suffering, all that.
Deep stuff. But how does the sprung rhythm actually work in the poem?
Well, remember how we were talking about stressed syllables, creating that urgency?
Yeah.
Listen to these opening lines.
Expert speaker.
Thou mastering me, God, giver of breath and bread, world strand, sway of the sea, Lord of living and dead.
Whoa. You can, feel the storm in those words.
Right. And the way the lines are uneven, plus those stressed words, mastering, God, strand, sway.
It's almost breathless.
Exactly. Like the speaker struggling to even say it all. It's so huge.
The rhythm is mimicking the chaos of the wreck itself.
Exactly. And he keeps doing that throughout, creating these moments of pure emotion.
Powerful stuff. So that's wreck, all drama and chaos. Then there's Pied Beauty, which sounds way more chill.
Pied Beauty is definitely more contemplative, focuses on nature's beauty, all the different imperfect things.
Interesting. So how does spring rhythm work in a poem that's not all storm and stress?
Well, in Pied Beauty, it's more about delight, wonder. Listen, expert speaker. Glory be to God for dappled things, for skies of couple color as a brinded cow, for rose moles all in stibble upon trout that swim, fresh fire-cold chestnut falls, finch's wings, landscape plotted in peacefold fallow and plow, and all trades their gear and tackle and trim.
Wow, it's like the poem's a tapestry itself, all these images.
Right, and the rhythm is, it's got those unexpected pauses, shifts. It's like it's mimicking the things he's describing.
That's wild. So same technique, but totally different vibes.
That's Hopkins for you. He's a master. He doesn't just use sprung rhythm. He shapes it to fit what he's doing.
He's not just a poet. He's like a composer, sculpting with words.
I like that. And it's something we can all learn from. This idea of paying attention to how language sounds.
Using words carefully, intentionally.
Yes. It can make how we communicate so much richer.
It reminds us that language isn't just about information. It's about feeling, connection.
Exactly. And that brings us back to why this matters. In our world, everything's instant, superficial. Hopkins reminds us that language can be meaningful.
He's saying, slow down, savor the words, enjoy the beauty of a well-crafted phrase.
Yes. And remember, real expression, whether it's poems, music, even just talking, it comes from being genuine, being willing to push boundaries.
It's like he's saying, hey, don't be afraid to experiment, break the mold.
Exactly. Find your own rhythm. And not just in poetry either. Think about it like painters using bold brushstrokes, just like Hopkins used those stressed syllables.
Or musicians composing with crazy rhythms, sudden changes.
Mirroring how our thoughts actually jump around. It's like he'd be pushing artists to ditch the rule book, tap into something real.
Something raw. It's fascinating to think, how would Hopkins fit into today's art world?
Right. With technology changing everything, I bet he'd be all over it.
Collaborating with AI to write poems, maybe?
Oh, totally. Or creating installations that react to your heartbeat or something.
The possibilities are mind-blowing, and that's what's so exciting about all this.
It's realizing that innovation, it's not stuck in one time period. It's a way of thinking. You can apply it anywhere.
So big picture, what do we take away from all this sprung rhythm stuff?
I think it's that rules, especially in art, are meant to be broken.
Hopkins showed us that, right?
Yeah. True expression comes from pushing those boundaries, finding your own voice.
And that goes beyond poetry. It's about how we approach anything we do.
Exactly. That willingness to experiment, to embrace the unexpected.
Find our own rhythm in life itself.
Well said. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into sprung rhythm. We've covered a lot.
His life, the technique, how it changed things.
And hopefully got you interested to learn more. Maybe even try it yourself. Because in the end, sprung rhythm is more than just some poetry trick. It reminds us that language is powerful.
That innovation can come from anywhere, and that beauty, it often hides in the unexpected.
So, as you go about your day, remember Hopkins and his daring experiment. Let it inspire you to break free. Find your own voice, your own rhythm.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep exploring.